Hi, this is Dave McComb, and it's the Estes Park Group meeting on January 2nd, 2020. We don't have a presenter today, but we've got a forum coming up next month, so I think we're going to talk a fair bit about last minute logistics for the forum. But before we do that, I'm going to kind of go through the roll call and everybody talk about what they're working on and their interest in data-centric architectures in general, and we'll just take it from there. So I'm reading the alphabetical list here, and I'll just call you guys out, and hopefully you can unmute yourself right before I call you. So, Adrian, you're first up.
Right. So I basically came here via Alan Morrison. We had a really nice chat some weeks ago, or some months by now, I guess. I'm running a Sasuko linked data consulting company in Switzerland, and I think data centric is basically what we do for pretty much in the beginning. We just didn't call it like that till Alan told me about your book, Dave. So everyone is super enthusiastic about that, by the way. We bought several. I think I will probably tell a bit more about what we do in another session when we can prepare something. We do linked data pipelining, which we completely describe in linked data as well. We do linked data-based user interfaces, lots of stuff around customer projects, and always trying to be data-driven. Just one thing which is of interest for me, we currently try to define what data-driven means from a developer perspective and domain specialist perspective. So we are thinking about what a data-driven environment would be. We dub it RDF Workbench. Like what would developers, and I talk about standard developers, not necessarily people which did a lot with Graph or RDF before. So how would they want to work with a development and environment for creating graph data? So that's really the thing we will spend quite some time on in this year. And if you have any interesting insights, please let me know.
Yeah, that's right on. Excellent. And maybe next month, the month after, if you guys have something you'd like to present to the group, we'd love to have it. About 2/3 of the time we have somebody presenting something, but today we don't.
Sure, let's do that.
Great. Alan, what's good with you?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. What's new? I think that what I'm thinking about lately, Dave, this is Alan at PwC, is how to get more people on board with what we're trying to do. And in general, there seems to be a focus on the overly tactical mentality associated with data management and a lack of awareness of graphs. And there's a disconnect in terms of how people are doing their everyday development and the kinds of development that we're talking about. And there's a small subset of developers who are tuned into the methods that we typically talk about in this call. And so how do we broaden the footprint? And so, you know, some people are asking me lately, well, microservices, for example, you know, they tend to encourage the disposable data, essentially, you know, rather than the reuse of data. And so I sort of think about that in terms of a continuum where you've got perishable data on one side of the continuum and reusable data on the other side. And that's another area where there's a low awareness among developers about reusability and the value of it. So if there was one thing I would love to take away from the forum, it would be, you know, how do we talk to others about what we're doing in a way that's more accessible to them?
Yeah, right on. That'd be a good one. Okay, Brian, I think you just snuck in there. We're just kind of introducing ourselves, talking about what we're interested in for the architecture, and then we're going to talk about the forum in a minute. Can you unmute yourself?
I'll do real quick. My name is Brian Schulte, and I'm actually a practitioner in the application world, responsible for the application systems for Geller Advisors, looking very hard at how we could get ourselves more data-centric as opposed to application-centric.
Very cool. I'm going to skip over caller 2, 4, 6, and 7, and when we get to the end of this, if we haven't heard from you, you can speak up. So that brings it to Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Carey, an ontologist with Semantic Arts, and I am particularly interested in how we can move our clients organically into a data-centric architecture. I don't think there's anybody out there willing to commit to the whole elephant at once, but what bites can we feed them as we go?
Yep, very cool. Mark?
This is Mark Auska. I am with Semantic Arts as well, ontology role, and my focus for quite a while and getting stronger all the time is to reduce the barrier to entry into the world of semantics in general. Obviously that includes data-centric architecture, but if people don't have any clue what the semantics part of it is, they're severely handicapped in being able to do it. Not that you can't do it, but it's enabled much stronger by having the semantic component available. And that's really what I'm focusing on at this point.
Very cool. Micah?
Hi, this is Micah Ungarch, and I am an employee at an ontologist at Semantic Arts, and so my interest in the data-centric architecture is part of my job.
Very cool. Michael?
Demute myself? Yeah, pretty much what Dan said. Well, first of all, who am I? I'm an ontologist of Semantic Arts in my 10th year, believe it or not. And really, just to emphasize, how do we get this into the organization? So we're working with a number of clients. We're focusing on knowledge graph, but that's only one of many pieces. And to respond to to emphasize what others have said about publicizing, I think every time any of us gives a talk anywhere, we should be talking up this. We should all have a slide that says, "Hey, there's this DCA thing going on," and just kind of advertise ourselves as something that exists.
Yep. And Peter? Morning. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good evening. I'm just kind of like still in the middle of New Year celebrations in Scotland. But one of the things that I'm interested in dealing with at the moment is that we're all, as the new year comes through, being told on our browsers that Flash is on the way out. And the way that I generally introduce people to graph models in their own data is through RelFinder, which I've put link to in the chat. This is a really excellent application, but it's a Flash application. So at the moment, what I'm doing is looking for ways in which we can replicate the same sort of functionality, perhaps in a kind of JavaScript canvas kind of way. And if anybody has any thoughts about that, then I'd be very interested in engaging with you.
Great. Thank you. Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Eunice. I'm an ontologist at Semantic Arts. I'm obviously interested in data-centric architecture. As Micah said, that's part of the job. I don't have anything else unique to say about it at this point.
Very good. And Steve?
I'm Steve Stewart. I'm an ontologist here at Semantic Arts. I'm interested in learning more about how to design better architectures.
Cool. We had a couple of people that are, I know probably Margaret, but if anyone else wants to introduce themselves, I'll give you a minute here.
I should do it quick. before I lose service again. I'm on I-80. I'm Margaret Warren. I am, my company is Metadata Authoring Systems, and last month I did the presentation about image snippets, which I created, which is a data-centric architecture. So I'm very excited about anything that's data-centric and RDF and semantics in general, and I don't know what else to say. So I'm on my way to Fort Collins right now.
Very good. Yep. Drive safely.
Thank you.
Okay. So maybe I will share my screen a little bit to have a backdrop for talking about the forum. I don't have anything really specific, but I got to figure out which screen this is. Monitor number 4. I think that's this one. Yeah. Here is, did that work? You guys see my screen?
Yes, looks good.
Good. We have a slightly more detailed agenda than this somewhere. This is the one that's on the website. We got one that has times and names. I just sent, oh wait, here it is. Just came in. Oops, this is all, that's funny. Okay, of course, we have a, I just have to hit the accept all. So here is roughly what we think we're going to be doing. I think these yellow ones are the ones that aren't confirmed yet. So we have 3 themes. In fact, I might do the themes from the website because it's simpler. If I can move this at all. No, I guess I can. Oh, there it is. So we're going to have one theme about, how do we get data into a data-centric architecture. Then we're going to have a theme around organizing it and making it secure and all that kind of stuff. And then the last day is a half a day. The theme is going to be about use and consumption, things like that. So here's what we have so far. Alan is going to have a keynote kickoff. We're going to have an NLP Sparkle thing, how to get data into a data architecture from natural language, unstructured text. We've got a talk on it's essentially an SQL interface for semantics, I think. And I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work with getting data in, but we'll see for that. Franz is, I think Jans is going to do a presentation about how their federation engine works. I think the yellow, we still need to confirm some of these things. Exenka have a virtualization layer, so we would, this is dynamically bringing in, leaving data where it is, dynamically bringing it in. Data Chemist also has a bunch of, how to do data wrangling and get data into our environment. And then we just got confirmed earlier this morning, a guy named Eugene Morozov. Is he one of your guys, Alan? Did you bring him into the fold? Does that name ring a bell? Are you mute?
No, it doesn't, Dave. I don't know Eugene.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of cool to have people that neither of us know on the agenda. Yeah. It sounded pretty good. So he's going to talk about provenance and the prov ontology. They've got some implementations. He says he can do demos and all that kind of stuff. Because one of the things, the theme we want this to be as hands-on as possible and people doing real live demonstrations of pieces or parts of a whole architecture, so we can all learn from each other. Then on Tuesday, Jamie and me, but hopefully Jamie does most of the work. We're beginning to work on something that we call role and rule based authorization, because what we're finding every place we go, there's really once you bring everything together and have it linked, people freak out because it's so easy to get to data that previously was squirreled away in silos, and now they're the old you know rule roles for applications and things like that just don't work anymore. So this is going to be still early days, but we'll have something to demo. Then we got somebody from Flurry talking about how to use blockchain to achieve security. So that'll be interesting, I think. We're hoping to get Siren in to do some entity resolution stuff, because that's a very key part of having an architecture and being able to figure out whether two or collection of two sets of properties about an individual represent the same individual or not. And then Boris and Grant are going to take us through where we've gotten to with Shackle, using it both, how to express Shackle constraints in a user interface, and then how to execute them in an architecture. And then we've got Schema App giving us some model-driven and or microservices-based stuff there. Forgot what that is, and also App Synergy on a similar sort of topic, because we're really thinking this whole model-driven is a key part of this. And then on Wednesday morning, I think we're going to have John O'Gorman do something about conversational interfaces. If not, that might be Limba again, because they've been doing a lot of conversational stuff with chatbots. Trying to get Anzograph to come in and do some of their visualization stuff. And then Mark Wallace is going to have some early stuff on what we are now calling SemOps, which is like DevOps. It's how do you make changes to your ontology and push them to production without breaking stuff. So, is there anybody else who wanted to be on the agenda and isn't there yet? We could still probably fit some things in. We can have some, early later sessions. We can, I don't know, some of these.
Well, I'm planning on being there, so I'd be happy to, of course, be showing more things about the image snippets system. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, there's a lot of aspects of that I think would be interesting, because you've got, well, I don't know, is your user interface essentially model driven?
Model-driven.
Or did you code that?
Coded, yeah. It's in Java. I mean, the architecture of the design of the software is not open per se, but it runs on the web, on a web server, so it's not a separate application. So, but all of the data itself is open, so I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I may have some interest, but I'm currently focusing on an angle that the audience to whom I'm trying to speak are people who are exclusively not on this call, for example.
Right.
And the only reason that I think it might be relevant is that I think that I've got some ideas on how we can open up the conversation, not to the people who are on this call, but the people who aren't and need to have some awareness.
Yeah,
we can talk about that later.
Yep.
Perhaps off the call.
If in one of these days, if we can squeeze in, what I would, either, maybe for want of a better word, called evangelization of, to go to Mark's point, how can we continue to build momentum for the data center architecture and the approach.
Yeah.
Dave, it's Peter here.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about including a chunk of unconference session in this, perhaps like Tuesday afternoon?
What do you think there? Just where sort of you go into a room and do it agilely, that kind of unconference?
Well, what I'm thinking is that by the time Tuesday mid-morning comes by, people will have got to know each other, and there could be an opportunity for pitching 2 or 3 parallel sessions for Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them,
Yeah.
but I think that you probably have enough people and enough spaces to do 2 or 3 parallel sessions for an hour or 2, based on whatever people in the course of the meeting have thought that they want to talk about further.
Yep. No, that's good. And there'll be a lot of social event things on Monday and Tuesday night.
But an unconference style part of the meeting means that you've got specific topics to talk about, and then you can also take stuff from it. The other point that I would be making is, what are you organizing to basically scribe the sessions that are taking place, so that we capture questions and things like that?
Yeah, good question. Actually, we did something last year. Now I don't remember. What did we do to scribe the sessions? Does anybody remember? We had some sort of.
We had Google Doc open that people would just spontaneously contribute to.
That's what it was. Yep.
Yep. But I guess one question I have is, do we actually have the meetings, multiple meeting spaces, or the possibility of that to accommodate multiple sessions going simultaneously? Because if we don't, then Peter's idea is maybe stillborn.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Melissa. I think maybe not. I think we just got one big room, and then some sort of side room for the vendor booths and the food.
I think it's something along that lines, but I have seen this concept articulated in one big room where you just go to different parts of the room and have your conversations, and just be mindful that it is one room that you're sharing.
And actually,
I've seen that work.
Yeah, I think there's a partition they can pull down the middle of this thing.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other topics that we should be covering that we aren't? That we can still reach out or get somebody to.
One of the things that I think is useful is always to get very compelling business cases. And sometimes when you pull these people together like this, you can begin to do that.
Yeah, this one's going to be a bit more architectural. We definitely need, use cases and the business case and all that kind of stuff, but we're kind of pitching this to be closer to the plumbing, that just how once you've got somebody convinced to go down this path, how we actually what do you have to do differently than traditional development to make this work?
Along those lines, Dave, it's helpful to have sort of a side-by-side comparison of traditional versus data-centric. It's like that could be a work product that we publish afterwards that really compares and contrasts and highlights the benefits of the data-centric approach, obviously.
Yeah, this, Alan, was what I was thinking about, because it's then that you can begin to tease out what the real business case for shifting is.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I've done some work along those lines already, actually, in some of my recent presentations.
Super.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that could be maybe that is the Google Doc that we should be. Well, there's probably a couple of them, but maybe we should just have this thing going and say, for after every presentation, how do you compare that? Any of them, like federation. That one's easy because you just, for all intents and purposes, you can barely do federation in a traditional environment. Maybe you get VDP or something like
Right.
that, or have a data warehouse, but really, that's so hard that you hardly do it at all.
I have a little bit of concern about the Google Docs approach, and to some extent I'll point back on a question of what did we do with the one that we prepared from the last session. It sounds like it's not really top of mind. I don't know that I ever saw a curated version of it.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what the issue is that if we get all this information together, the amount of effort to extract what the actual meaning was when there's multiple contributors putting information in there, and there isn't really any curation. It's just a collection of brain dumps. That can be harder to try to pull something out. I don't know if we have the ability to have dedicated scribes who would not participate, but would only capture what the conclusions and themes, etc., are that are going on. That would be one effective way to do it. But I don't know if we have resources that we can dedicate to that who can keep their mouth shut. And not contribute,
or hire somebody.
Yeah, or maybe just bring Melissa or Ryan in, or have them swap off or something.
But if we hired a professional stenographer, I have no idea how much that would cost. But
so what I'm getting at is exactly the opposite of what you're saying. It's not stenography. It's not taking minutes. It's someone who has enough insight into the content to write down what the relevant conclusions and organize the topics are. This isn't about minutes. This is about an analysis, a captured analysis. Recording analyst is the role that I've used in the past. And specifically, people who just capture minutes are totally ineffective, because that's just like a recording and you have the same concept that it's hard to ferret out what the decisions were by going through that. So somebody who can do that kind of real-time analysis as to what decisions did the group make and what were the topical themes that appeared, and people who aren't topically aware don't do that effectively.
Yeah, good point. Good distinction.
Here, I think was the curated notes from last year. You're right. I don't know if we ever. Let's do it again. Let's call it a forum. Let's focus on implementation. Let's make it a bit more vendor friendly. I think we actually did those 4 bullet points. So we came with a shared vision. That was kind of reasonable. We think we're trying to build something that's relatively unique. There's pieces of it out there and some initial implementations, but I think this is still true. We've outlined a platform that does not yet exist and needs to. We think we hit most of the pieces that people thought are going to have to be there for an architecture to exist. Most people thought that it was doable. It's not something as hard as autonomous driving or, stuff like that. Actually, yeah, this is something we may want to come back to, is do we have or are we going to come out of this with a reference architecture or just some ideas about implementation, I think. And then we just kind of went through and summarized some of the presentations. I don't want to go through those now, but it goes on for, this chart summarizes with strategies. Seems like that was that your chart, Mark? Did you build, somebody built this thing that was pretty interesting?
Could have been Andrea.
Dave, you had that on the whiteboard, if you remember. You started out with those rows and columns.
Yeah.
Dave, one of the things I was thinking, I didn't really say much about this yet, but what I imagined would be happening during the next DCA forum is essentially following on from what we did last time. A major part of last time was looking at each aspect of the architecture and talking about the technologies, what's hard, what can we do, where should we start. And so I was imagining, without and giving it any thought really, was that a substantial part of this one, maybe the first whole day, would be simply reviewing every one of those major things and saying, okay, where were we last year and where are we now and what has happened since then? We at Semantic Arts have done a number of things with our DCA. It's kind of starting to exist, whereas last year it didn't. So I was imagining, and like the big challenge area, the one that sticks top of mind for me was security. So where are we in terms of security thinking? So I'd like to kind of like a where are we now, where are we going? What are our current challenges?
Well, what we tried to do with the agenda was have specific examples or implementations of pieces of the architecture. So, you know, for instance, the security one, we're gonna demo how far we've gotten with that.
Okay.
There's two of them. You know, there's what we're gonna do and what the Flurry guys are gonna do. Because I think that is one of the biggest issues right now. But
yes, that's fair. That should work. So maybe at the end we can have a wrap up and look at those 6 layers or however many there are in your diagram, and just kind of tag where's the progress we made from last year and what needs to be done next and what's short, medium, and long term.
yeah, you know, I suppose what we really need to do is say, you know, is this a solved problem? Is this something you can buy? Is this something there's a reasonable open source thing for? Is this, you know, like the Provo guys or the guys that have implemented the Prov stuff, I think are going to just show us here's a way to do that.
Yeah, so actually that makes more sense at the end. If we see all the demos of things that are actually happening, then we can pull together all that in some kind of coherent way forward.
I would suggest perhaps it might be a good thing to have the different categories of things that we envision for the data-centric architecture, and as we go, almost use it like breadcrumbs. Where are we now? What part of the data-centric architecture are we talking on during this session?
Yes, that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
that would lead right into the summary that I was thinking. But it would make that less, it would just happen for free by doing it.
Exactly. That's it, exactly.
Yeah. Looks terrible. Okay. Why didn't that change color?
I've added a few things to the chat. One of them is to do with issue-based information systems and dialogue mapping, as shown in things like Compendium. It just strikes me that being a kind of RDF graph kind of group, that we could probably do something very similar. And the other thing is using something like a Sankey model. This is the last one, but this is like how you can use a Sankey model, like a Sankey plot, like that one, to link the various technical features that we know to the types of problems that they're well suited to.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So that particular report was doing exactly this. It was linking technical solutions to well-known problems in the organization.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see, okay. So would we...
Dave, if you open up one of the earlier ones, like the first link that I sent on the one that starts off lucid chart. Yeah. So just scroll down to the diagram a little bit lower.
Oh, yeah.
Right, that one. So what you have is a problem which may or may not be well articulated that results in people talking about solutions. And for the solutions, there are pros and cons about a particular solution shown in the plus and minus, or solutions lead to more questions, which then lead to more ideas. And this is the way in which this issue-based information system is set up. And if you look at Compendium, the software that I put another link into, that kind of then enables you to annotate the arrows a bit, and it becomes a bit more RDF-y, but with very restricted vocabulary. And you can pretty much replay discussions through this dialogue mapping from the image many years after the conversation has taken place. It's very effective.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything I should click on this Cognexus one?
Well, that's where you can download the software to
Okay.
support this, but it also, there are things that will tell you. For right now, no, just that particular image.
Yeah.
Will give everybody the idea. I'm sure we could improve on that, but it's
right. So in our case, we would probably put the 10 or so layers of the architecture here in the middle of the Sankey diagram and say what, which presentations or which pieces of technology are contributing to which layer. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep. Yeah.
Dave, are we going to have any cameras or anything available at the event?
I think we looked at it and it was pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask Melissa again, but it's this weird sort of thing. If you commit to recording the whole thing, they go kind of whole hog on it.
Yeah. My son's in a gaming community that he helps out with, and he says that they live stream using Twitch, and then they upload the videos to YouTube.
Huh.
And so I think there are methods out there that you could use on a shoestring. I don't have the impression.
Yeah, sorry, my stepson does that as well. He's a big streamer he makes a lot of money actually streaming on Twitch. So he knows a lot about that. I agree that the shoestring, live streaming it and then saving the videos onto YouTube is like a great idea. Yeah.
So what do we just get a tripod and set up a phone and let her rip? Is that it?
I could ask him how they do it specifically.
Yeah,
or Margaret, yours could tell us the same thing, I imagine.
Yeah. Exactly. I have a Twitch account.
I'm guessing you could pick up a video camera pretty cheap that you could put on there rather than dedicating somebody's phone to the task.
I have a few of them that I could bring with tripods. I mean, I don't know how I'll start asking around to make sure, with my stepson if I can, make it work. But yeah, maybe this is possible.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Well, what else should we consider, plan, or change, or? We're going to have an internal conversation next Monday, but and it's part of our website doesn't make very much sense at the moment, and in the act of evolving it, I'm thinking that I want to position data centric as being graph database plus semantics plus model driven everything.
One of the suggestions that I have about wrap up in particularly the iSCF conferences, when I'm chairing that, what we normally do is to have somebody at the end of the day kind of give a 15-minute wrap up on what we've learned during all the sessions of the day, or all the sessions in the particular half of the day.
Yep. Yeah, actually, Mark Auska is good at that. He's got his little three-part synopsis.
The debrief.
Yeah, the debrief.
I'm quite happy to do that at any point.
That to, what did we actually learn, not just how did you feel about it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the very specific thing. It's what did we learn in the presentations.
Yeah, I think the TTI Vanguard folks, they run a conference series that's very expensive to subscribe to, and one of the people on the board takes it upon himself to do the debrief at the end of the event, and it really is helpful to sort of summarize and distill the takeaways.
Yeah.
I think it's a minor adjustment to the debrief strategy that I've had to change it to focus on what are the takeaways, what are the things we've eliminated, over discussion.
Yeah, good idea.
Around the logistics of the space, will we have 2 projectors and, or the space enough to use them?
I think we have enough space. Do you think we need 2 projectors? We're going to have, I don't know, 45 people probably.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking, maybe having the second one on hand just in case might be a good idea.
Okay. Do we know of anybody else who should be here that isn't yet?
Should be, I mean, in terms of content presentation?
Yeah.
You're the one that has the attendee list, Dave. Are there people on the attendee list that we ought to tap?
Yeah, I'll have that list here in just a second. Let me send a note to Melissa.
So along the lines of content presentation, I don't see anybody focused on property graphs. Is that something we want to avoid, or do we bring in the competition, if you will? Since they're coming together in the near future anyhow, I wonder if it makes sense to have that perspective here.
I wonder if maybe we could put it on the ANZA graph guys.
I suspect they'd be
I have a question. I'm not sure whether this has been addressed since I'm so new to listening in on this, but is there anyone from Solid as far as the idea of the solid pods and the whole architecture being, the protocol around the linked data? And I don't know how that fits into the enterprise. I'm sort of just getting myself acclimated with that terminology, but just curious about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Didn't somebody mention that they were implementing Solid? Does anybody remember who that was?
Well, I spoke with Tim Berners-Lee at length. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I spoke with, you know, Tim, it's interesting you were mentioning the concept of roles and rule-based things and access control, because we discussed that quite a bit as how it related to images and where you would want access control, and then using, you know, solid logins and solid pods for the back end. So I've started implementing little dinky pieces, you know, and talked with a number of the, you know, a few of the solid developers. But, you know, I just need to sort of acclimate how that fits into the enterprise role. But, you know, they love talking to people because they really want to get developers in at the developer level.
Right.
But that's their idea, because they're trying to make a whole new protocol, and you know, and it's hard to get people, just like what we're finding, you know, in general with the uptake of just semantics. I mean,
right.
Just thinking in general. So they're always excited to send people out, I think.
Ruben Verborg and Raphael in Informatie Flanders, Belgium. They've been doing on this.
Yeah.
Maybe Adrian has as well. I don't know.
Do you guys want to reach out? I mean, there's not a lot of time between now and the first week of February, but you know, do you want to reach out, see if they'd be interested? We'd make a place for them.
Yeah, I know.
I could try emailing Morgan. Yeah, Ruben would probably be better, maybe.
Ruben is speaking at Semantics in Austin, but that's in April, so that's after our event. Right.
Yeah.
A developer who works with Tim is Jackson Morgan, and he may be somebody to. I'm not sure. I mean, he definitely is at a very really low on the stack, you know, developer implementer level. So I'm not sure what, you know, he may be able to bring something, a workshop or so. He did that at the Internet Archive in San Francisco last year. So, and it was, you know, definitely geared towards developers.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been nationwide. Somebody was starting to try and get this implemented in the enterprise. I'm just trying to remember who that was. Might have been nationwide. Do you guys remember? Anybody was at it nationwide? Who was that? Mark, were you out there?
I was not.
No.
Wait, which thing nationwide?
You know, that when we're out there with them and doing some workshops and stuff, wasn't one of their guys implementing Solid? Like Alex or one of those guys?
I don't recall them saying they were implementing it. I think they were aware of it, but
yeah, maybe. Yeah, no, that'd be a good one. That would totally fit in.
Yeah, I think in general, what's attractive about it is that it's there's so much of it that's already been developed, so they've thought through a lot of this stuff already, and they've come up with something that could be very suitable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think in general, there's a question of where does the architecture end, and where can you hand off other things to other parts of the ecosystem, and where would you hand it off to?
Yeah.
So I think Fleury's talk on blockchain, for example, sort of opens up the question of, okay, how does blockchain fit in, and why reinvent the wheel when it comes to that sort of thing? Are there things we can just take advantage of, and what are the plug and play parts of that we can just sort of hand off to?
Yeah.
One of the things I think that is would be of interest to enterprises is, of course, that the fact that you can host your solid pod anywhere. for your data.
Mhm.
So, you can host it yourself. You can pick, you can pick a solid provider, but, enterprise is really concerned with their data. They can host their pods themselves. So that's a modular component.
Is Solid more on the authentication side than the authorization side, though?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. But that's still good. We got to figure out how to make a total solution out of this, though.
Right.
Yep.
Well, it looks like Solid is out on GitHub for anybody who wants to dig into it.
Yep.
Oh, there's quite a lot. There's a big Solid forum, and it's Solid Project MIT. They have a company behind them. They're trying to get funding. Inrupt is the company. INRUPT. But I think, the way for entry into it is to go through Solid Project.MIT or something like that. I don't know. Solid Project MIT. Then you could get to all of the code and the forum, and it's very early, which is part of the problem. It's like he's trying to get developers on board and get them excited about this kind of architecture. But a lot of it is just a big learning curve for people who can't necessarily see the cost benefit yet, or the profit.
Yeah. Well, that fits in. The DCA is still early days too.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Wait, I think I have an attendee list here. Here it comes. So let's see who we got here. Organization. Cambridge Semantics, yep. Use the actual, okay, yep. Independent consultants. Eric. Seems like Eric had something worth sharing, but I've forgotten. Oh, here's Eugene. Oh yeah, Jonathan just told me that two of his bosses, Hamish is coming. Excellent.
Is there anything for the relational people on the agenda?
Yeah, I know. There is there's this thing, TBL SQL.
Yeah. Okay. There is. Yeah, that's right. Timber. At least it's.
And then there's potentially also that thing that we were talking about this morning. It's also got AI in the name. What was it called? It's relational for AI. I still haven't figured out how it fits in here, but.
Yeah, I've been in touch with the relational AI folks, and they are trying to build views that are relevant to, number one, ontologists, but also number two, business analysts, people who are immersed in relational to begin with, and SQL types, and then number three, the data scientists. They basically are seeing these matrices that the data scientists are using in their machine learning efforts, and seeing that that stuff doesn't have relationships in it, and you have to do feature recognition to try to rebuild the relationship. So they're really frustrated by the fact that we strip out all the relationships and then try to put them back in. And it just seems like a lot of extra effort that doesn't go anywhere. So that's their motivation.
Right.
And they're talking to customers right now, but I don't think they have anybody really using the product a lot yet.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the motivation, but I'd be more excited about it if I could figure out how we would do the same thing on a knowledge graph instead of on a relational database. I mean, they're right. There's a whole lot of lossy translation going from relational into the feature models that AI people want, and they're just saying let's skip the lossy translation part. But we would say, yeah, why not? How about just doing it from the graph?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the approach that they're talking about is adding more structure onto where we already have too much structure, rather than taking the structure out and focusing on the meaning of it, which is, I think, what we're all about.
Yeah, I think labels rather than tables, sort of. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I like that one.
I haven't heard that. Did you just make that up?
That's cute.
I don't know what other people have said before, but that's the way I think about it.
That's a good one. That's right up there with things, not strings,
Yeah, I think that was the other one that sort of made sense.
Yeah.
I strayed for a moment from my attention. What was this clever thing I need to remember?
Labels rather than tables.
Oh, labels, not tables.
The new T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. A teacher that nobody will understand. Yep. Okay, well, should we just wrap it here? We've been at it for an hour. It was pretty good. I recorded this in case we had anything useful to say. But I got some good input. And if you think of anything, just shoot me a line. And for many of you folks, we'll see you. I guess we won't have this call next month because we'll be at the conference, right? I think so. Or we'll just be leaving or something like that.
This
Anyway,
call will be live next month.
that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
Live and in person.
For the day after.
Twitching.
Yeah.
We'll be twitching.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Take
Yeah,
care.
we'll be twitching. It's a question of what's a technology or a physiological response to the experience.
Twitching rather than bitching. That's See you guys.
Okay, have a good one. Thank you.